The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Concept Show. My name is Kerry Greenaway and I know you're all expecting to hear the lovely dulcet tones of Paul. Unfortunately, Paul is poorly tonight, so I have taken the helm and I've called a couple of friends into the studio with me to help me with the topic for tonight. The first one is Mr. Carl Hutchinson. Good evening, Carl. How are you?
Good evening, Kerry. I'm doing very, very well. How are you?
I'm very, very well. And the second is, we couldn't do a show on aliens or alien abduction or a ufology case without the lovely Mark Manley. Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Aliens! That's it. I'm happy.
And that's it. Mark's done for the night. So we are talking...
That's it. End of the show.
We are talking about the case of Travis Walton. It is one of the most famous ufology abduction cases in the world, I would say, arguably.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, you could say so, yeah.
I would say so too. So we thought we'd have a little look at this tonight. And first of all, who's seen the film? Because I haven't.
I did a long time ago, but I can't remember it, but I know about the case.
Well, funny enough, before Kerry sort of strung on me into tonight, I watched it about 2 weeks ago on late night TV.
No,
okay.
There's
right,
synchronicity. Cool. There's synchronicity.
I don't know.
Oh, my goodness me. Right, okay, so let's have a look at the details of this case. To start with, I think, is where we'll go. Hold on 1 second. I'm just doing that. Okay,
Actually, I'm on the MUFON site now, and I have their entire case about it up on front of me.
Go on then, off you go.
Oh, all right. Travis Walton is an American logger who was supposedly abducted by a UFO on November the 5th, 1975. While he was working with a logger crew, and I've just got to move my Skype over, in the Apache Sick Reeves National Forest in Arizona. Walton could not be found, but reappeared after a 5-day search. I've seen quite a few things about this. It is an interesting case. Do you want me to give you a bit of insight into it, or do you want to talk about it first, or do you want to... I don't know. It's an atypical...
Basically, what they did was they would finish their day's work and they were on their way home, weren't they? And they're in the van and they see some lights, or what they thought was the wood on fire, or the forest on fire. But they said, well, there's no smoke. So they went to get a bit of a closer look.
Mm-hmm.
As they approached, they realised it wasn't what they expected it to be. It turned out to be an aircraft of some form, a spaceship, flying saucer.
A large silvery disc.
Yeah, flying saucer. Pure, normal, what you would imagine out of an alien aircraft, right?
You know what pilots then?
Pardon?
Do you know what pilots large silvery discs?
I'm going to regret asking.
Aliens!
Anyway, Travis was the only one that got out of the truck, approached, but as he approached, he was hit by an energy bolt that threw him 20 foot away. The other guys in the van scarpered, got about a quarter of a mile down the road and decided that they better go back to see what happened to poor old Travis. Right, you can imagine the conversations that were going on in that car, can't you?
Yeah.
They also said that when he was lifted up, because he wasn't just hit by the light, he was actually lifted up in this beam of light first. And they said that he basically, his arms and legs were outstretched and his back arched really stiffly. And then when he was like about 10 foot in the air, that's when he was thrown out of the light and he landed on his right shoulder. And they thought he was dead. So there's life, Jim, but not as we know it.
Yeah, because they were in the back of a pickup, weren't they? Because Travis and
that's right, yeah.
I think 4 of his friends were in the back, and there was 2 guys in the front of the cab. And as you said, Travis was the one that was more curious, got out to go and have a look at this light or this thing that they saw in the woods. And I know that he's just said that he was sort of drawn to the light. I know that sounds weird. Right. Not in like flies to light, all look like.
It's so beautiful.
Don't go into the light. But yeah, it's the thing that interests me about it a little bit is obviously if it was just him giving a recount of it, then fair enough. You would take it as a personal experience. But there were other witnesses that witnessed it, saw what happened to Travis, because if you watch the film, the film that was done in 1993 about it, when Mark just said about he was lifted up and his body was arched, his arms were outstretched, that is the typical thing that people expect when they think of abductions. They see he puts it out like in sort of a crucifix pose with his head back. But because there were other people there,
that's right.
That to me sounds more interesting because you've got collaboration from other people's viewpoints.
Yeah.
Yes, they bugged off because they thought he was dead because they were scared, but at least they came back to try and find him.
Well, yeah. Well, you can imagine the conversations in the truck on that one, can't you? It's like a highly emotive situation.
Well, there's a couple of things with that also. What you got to remember is it happened in 1975, and there wasn't really a lot of well-known cases about alien abduction and movies of that sort, that ilk. But before then, and also when the sheriff Marlon Gillespie spoke to the guys, he actually said that 2 of them were in tears and were so upset. That who was it? Smith, Pierce, and Goulet, who were in the cab as well, couldn't help because they were they were messed up, completely messed up, and in too much of a mess to help. Yeah. So, I mean, that corroborates it in itself.
It was basically Rogers, wasn't it, who went, no, we've got to go back.
Yeah,
because that's one of his best friends. So they go back to the site, and he's nowhere to be seen. No sign of the aircraft or the flying saucer or whatever you want to class it as. There was nothing there. So they then go back to the town, and they go straight to the sheriff, and they report what's happened. And like you say, they are all in a mess. None of them are what I would class as in a sane state, were they? Rational state. They were all very upset. They were garbling. They were saying... And the sheriff actually thought that they'd murdered Travis.
That's right.
Over... Yeah. Because Travis was actually going out with, if I believe right, Mike Rogers' sister. Was it his sister?
I believe it was his sister.
Yeah. So they thought they'd had a row, and basically they'd had a fight, killed him, and they were making up this story to cover up the fact that Travis had got killed, which is why he'd kind of disappeared.
Yeah. But unknown to them, obviously going back onto the story... Travis then appears a week later in Snowflake, Arizona, completely disorientated. He doesn't know where he is, doesn't know where he's been, has vague recollections of waking up on a gurney, thinking he was in hospital, and that's when he then recounts what he physically saw with grey, big eyes, with things going on.
That's right. So this is like the pure abduction case, isn't it? It's a pure scenario where he's been taken off, disappears off the face of the earth, and comes back 5 days later.
There's also one other thing I'd quite like to point out, is that when he disappeared, it was actually a winter's night, and it was getting really cold, and he only had on a thin denim jacket, a logger shirt, and a pair of jeans. And that was it. But when he reappeared, there's no signs of hypothermia, nothing.
No. Now, the one thing Travis says, I mean, he's well documented. He's done so many interviews. His story and the story of the other guys involved all remain the same, even after all this time.
Yep, nobody's ever detoured from the fact.
No, they've all sucked their story of what they witnessed at that time. There's been no deviation from that. And that's the bit I find quite interesting, because after all this time, yes, I know, I think you do get to a point where, particularly back in the day when this first hit the media,
they were ridiculed.
Yeah, completely ridiculed. And at some point, somebody in that group of people would have made a mess up and elaborated something or, twisted the facts or something. But they haven't.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing's changed. And there's also another thing to point out is that when they went back to the scene of where he disappeared and they'd already seen the police, they were furious because there was no police there helping with the search. And they actually went back down to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff described Rogers and Dwayne Walton as explosively angry because there were no police there helping with the search. So, if they had done something harsh, and as we know they didn't, they wouldn't be explosively angry and want the police involved.
No, they would have tried. They would have tried to. Well, try not to get the police involved one little bit if they had done it. But obviously, they were obviously suspects because the police and the sheriff thought they'd done him in. And they were treated like convicted people for the 5 days before Travis reappeared.
Yeah. Now, they've all taken lie detector tests on this. And generally, and they've taken, over the time, they've all done quite a few.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly from this case, in the first week, whilst he was still missing, the 5 actually did have a lie detector test.
Yep.
Because they were like, we have not killed him. We'll sit and do a lie detector test. We didn't kill him. Yeah, go on then, Marky.
On Monday, November the 10th, all of Rogers' remaining crew took polygraph examinations administered by Cy Gilson of the an Arizona Department of Public Safety employee. His questions asked if any of the men caused harm to Walton or knew who had caused Walton harm, if they knew where Walton's body was bruised, and if they told the truth about seeing a UFO. The men all denied harming Walton or knowing who had harmed him, denied knowing where his body was, and insisted they had all indeed seen a UFO. Now, excepting Dallas, who had not completed his polygraph exam, so it rendered it invalid, Gilson concluded that all the men were truthful, and the exam results were conclusive, and they corroborated Travis. Clark quotes from the Gilson official report, "These polygraph examinations prove that these 5 men did see some object they believed to be a UFO, and that Travis Walton was not injured or murdered or harmed by any of these men on that Wednesday. If the UFO was fake, Gilson thought, 5 of these men had no prior knowledge of it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, that's me. I know lie detectors are very controversial.
Well, Travis was actually given another lie detector test in 2009, and when he was on a game show called The Moments of Truth. Yeah. And when it came to the bit, he was asked if he was abducted in 1975. He responded yes, and the polygraph examiner determined that his answer prior to the taping was 97% accurate.
But on the show, they said he was false.
Well, they said here that the polygraphs are 97% accurate.
But
it does say here
they are very controversial. When you look into polygraph tests, they are very controversial. There is no verifiable proof, as it were, although they're not used in big court cases. They're only used in judicial, apparently, in America.
That's right, yeah. Because apparently they can be beaten, because there's 2 types of polygraph. There's the one mainstream one, and there's one which has a few more probes, and one of them includes going up your bum.
No, it doesn't.
If it does, there is one that goes up your bottom, and it detects the.
Not in the article I read.
It detects your bottom puckering. It detects your bottom puckering like that.
But I also think I would say this, right? As a single person doing a lie detector, yes, if you are that kind of character, you could probably fool the test. If you've got no conscience, you could fool that test, I would say. You could lie and get away with it. Yeah, but not all of these people. That's what I'm trying to get to, is you've got a group of people. So if that was, no matter how controversial you want to look at it as a tool, somebody somewhere would, you're not going to get all of them passing, are you?
You wouldn't.
It would be quite a bit stretched to say that out of the people that did it, and they all passed for the answering the same questions, to all be able to fake it at that particular moment in time.
Exactly.
And I don't know much. I've looked at polygraph tests, and I know that it's done on breathing, it's done on pressure through your fingers, and they obviously do the baseline questions and all that sort of stuff, and then it reacts to how you react. And yes, basically they're saying there's people out there that can basically slow their breathing down, they can slow their pulses down, they can slow everything down to basically fake them. But these guys were loggers.
Yes, exactly.
These guys were
they're basically rednecks.
I was going to say, you're looking at rednecks, aren't you?
Yeah.
Jay Lynch. Hello, Jay.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Check shirt, big hands.
We love you, Jay.
Love you, Jay. But yeah, these guys were just common garden people that. But it's not like years after. They did them within a short period of time beforehand, and they have done them since over the time.
Yeah, they've done 13 polygraph tests have been done on these people.
Yes, What are the odds of being able to basically all of them passing every single polygraph if they've done 13 over God knows how many years? I obviously don't know the answer to that because I'm not an expert on a polygraph, but I don't know what the sort of odds would be to be able, 5 people plus Travis, to be able to pass these tests.
It's 1,000,000 to 1.
Is it?
It is actually 1,000,000 to 1. I looked into it.
Wow. If they are, they should be playing the lottery, and instead of going in the woods in Arizona, they should have gone to Vegas instead.
The only problem is, now, Travis Walton and his family were obsessed with the UFO and alien contact. They were actually absolutely obsessed. Pre-event.
According to this, they weren't obsessed, but they had an interest in it, and so did 2 of the other guys who were in the pickup truck. It wasn't an obsession; it was just an interest. Because I looked up the obsession side of it as well, and it wasn't.
This happened in 1975, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
When was Roswell?
51.
51. So it
was that Area 51. Sorry.
Area 51.
Roswell was just
Roswell?
before the Second World War, wasn't it? 43 or 47.
Oh, we
and
should
you're
know
in,
this,
you're
guys.
You're in an area. You're in an area, Arizona, blah blah blah, not far from Nevada, blah blah blah. Blah. So there's possibly that people will be interested in UFOs because of sightings, etc., etc. Doesn't mean that you're going to get 5 people be able to say the same test. But you've also got to remember what the state Travis reappeared. He had some type of burn on his chest.
Very true.
That's right.
To indicate his story.
True.
So are they? So yeah, there's going to be people out there, conspiracy theories, thinking that it was all faked.
Yeah.
And they basically just burnt him. Blah 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 blah. But you've got to remember that it's to fake some sort of like burn, like electrical burn. If you're in the middle of a forest, it's going to be quite difficult to do.
Not necessarily when you think loggers.
Can I now hang on? Because
I'm playing devil's advocate because I don't know, but they're loggers. They kind of got that kind of equipment and knowledge of how to, if they wanted to.
A burn's a burn, yeah. If it's a burn, as in fire burn, but they're saying that, if I remember rightly,
it was like an ice burn, wasn't it?
It was different to a physical flame burn. This was like you would get from electrical or, like you say, an ice sort of something. Which would these guys know how to do that sort of thing if they were trying to fake it?
Well, this is true. This is true. But, okay, so let's have a look at what he says about his abduction himself. Now, Travis says that what he thinks happened is that when he got hit by that energy blast that threw him across, he thinks he actually died at that moment. The aliens, we'll go with the word aliens because we don't know what they were, right? The people in the craft, went, oh shit, we've just killed somebody, we better go and get him. Get him on board, we'll resus. He was then put into some form of medical coma while they fixed him and resuscitated him and did all that, which is why he hasn't got a whole memory set from the 5 days. He was in and out of consciousness whilst he was on said craft. Yeah. And then
he
once
also
they
had
fixed
a
him,
hypodermic needle thing on his elbow.
Exactly. There were things he had on him that showed medical attention, shall we say. And then when they got him okay, they then sort of like released him.
So basically, they got a baby bird with a broken wing, mended him, and they went...
It's like,
a Paul moment, yeah.
Exactly. It's like a bird crashing into your window, and you go, oh, poor little bird, get the bird happy, then release him back into the wild.
A little bit like that, yeah. That's how he sort of sees it, his abduction time on the craft.
But he also remembered certain elements. Like you said, he remembers being on it. One of his first recollections was he found himself... He remembers being on a gurney.
Yes.
And he initially then thought, oh, it must be in hospital.
Yeah.
Because of obviously the lighting and obviously being on a gurney. But then his other recollections are of non-human type people.
Yeah.
The greys with the big eyes, because obviously there's several different types of aliens.
Yeah,
I can't do it as good as you, Mark, but aliens.
You let me know when you want it done, and I'll do it for you, mate. All right?
Okay, we'll try it just for the retake. There are certain types of
aliens,
and the greys being one type of
alien.
There we go.
We might need to do a show on the different types of aliens that there are out there, because they get quite bizarre in places. And that would be a fun show. Anyway, so you're right. He's on this ship and he's got this recollection. Now, another facet of this time he spent with these aliens was he said at one point, I didn't say it like you. He said at one point that he felt that they were trying to control him mentally, couldn't, so they all left the room. Because he was a lot bigger than them. It was like, because he felt like he was a giant amongst...
There's a couple of things with that.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple... Did you read about why they left the room, according to him?
Because they couldn't control him.
No.
That's what I read.
Report, it's...
Well, I love this. I believe the MUFON report.
Walton related that he feared for his safety and got to his feet and shouted at the creatures to stay away. He grabbed a glass-like cylinder from a nearby shelf and tried to break its tip to create a makeshift knife, but found the object unbreakable. So instead he waved it at the creatures as a weapon, and then the trio of creatures left him in the room.
I love that. Stay away, I'm going to attack you with this cylinder thing that I can't break.
It was a bong. He picked up an alien bong off the shelf and went like this, and the other one, they just went, no, dude, he's going to break it. Let's go.
He's losing his temper over it. I just want to refer to the chat room. Good evening, chat room. Thank you so much for joining us. Right, Richard has said the use of polygraphs to establish paranormal phenomena is fraught with problems. If they come through as a positive, everybody with a belief in a paranormal will say it's proof. However, if they come back negative, everybody in the paranormal will state that polygraphs are not 100% conclusive. That's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Doesn't matter what you do. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. That's typical of the...
Such is the nature of our jobs.
This is true. Roswell was in 1947, so that was a well-known case at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When was the Barney and Betty case?
That was the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So abduction was quite in the media eye at this time. So even if you are living in the backwater of Arizona, you're still going to have known about these cases.
Yeah, because
I mean, carry on.
I'm just agreeing with what Kerry's saying. Yeah, these cases that have happened since Roswell and all the ones through up until this particular case, they would have made some sort of press, some sort of impact on newspapers, television, etc. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they probably would have been aware of it.
And even the National Enquirer had offered a $5,000 award for positive proof of an extraterrestrial encounter by this time as well.
Yeah, but you've also got to take that with a pinch of salt, because the National Enquirer also put up a reward for an actual ghost.
Well, they did, and the National Enquirer isn't exactly like a... Well,
no, it's basically like in this country, it'd be like back in the day, the Sunday Sport.
Yeah, it's but then
Elvis
again,
fan,
Men in Black, they use that as,
exactly.
The Men in Black use that as their go-to for what's going on in the alien world that's allegedly on Earth.
Only if you watch a film with Will Smith in, they do.
I might just want to point out that Kerry does not believe in aliens.
Well, are you getting the vibe of this?
Don't.
But it is worth also stating that Walton and other crew members divided the $5,000 and gave exclusive story rights to the National Enquirer.
How long after?
I don't know.
Okay.
Does that state anything in the MUFON report about that?
Go back to... There's a lot of stuff in the MUFON report that does contradict each other, because there's a lot of stuff that Travis has said, but he was supposed to have been in a weakened state with splitting headache and this, that, and the other. And it's like, if he was, then how the hell did he manage to leap off that bed and grab that and go in a karate stance and threaten people with a glass thing?
Particularly if he then says he thought he'd died and they brought him onto the ship to help resurrect him.
On the flip side of that, adrenaline in humans is an amazing thing. You've got cases, proven cases where you've had a vehicle turned over and a little petite woman has literally moved the vehicle off to get to their children. So adrenaline rush and the whole thing that boosts things is happens all the time.
This is true. When my son got run over, you'd never seen me move so fast.
Exactly. It's all about adrenaline. So if he feared for his life, it's that fear or flight routine, isn't it? So what do?
He can't run away, can he? So
he fights.
It's the only other option.
Exactly. So that's the whole scenario around that. It's the fight or flight routine.
So you carry on. I'm just reading some more of this. Report.
No, so
it makes sense, and a lot of it's like.
Yeah, Roswell was in 47. We covered that bit. Richard, non-human people in a hospital must have been Basildon. It's true that.
I don't know. I don't know if you'd seen some of the people I've arrested in my job in the past. You'd think, oh yeah, aliens.
But in the day, there's been alien sightings in Essex, so that could explain an awful lot.
It's just dogging sites, mate.
I didn't want to say it, but Mark said it for me.
I've been out on night out in Essex, and I've seen plenty of aliens.
Barney and Betty, it was in 1961. So, that fits with the time span of what we're talking about. I find this whole case very interesting because the stories haven't changed. They've reiterated and told their stories in many, many interviews. And, they have passed not just one, but several polygraph tests. The emotional responses of the people have been what you would pretty much expect if you was to do a profile. If you was going to do like they do with they do profiling, don't they, on people, and how people, certain types of people react in certain types of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah. So they've done that, and that each character responded how they would have expected them to react to this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, one thing that interests me, was there any physical evidence in the forest? Apart from the fact that he disappeared, was there any physical evidence on the actual forest? Like, were the trees burn, or was there, like, I don't know, knocked off branches where the alien craft was supposed to have come down? Was there, you know, you would imagine an aircraft of that kind of calibre would have some form of propulsion system, or, you know, something that would have affected the fauna.
I'm just reading this now, and it doesn't actually mention any of that. But if I remember rightly, there was some evidence of the ground of scorching, and I think there was some. They used a Geiger counter on it, and it had like low radiation, only in the bits where the alleged craft was. I think there was some evidence, but it wasn't overwhelming, you know.
No.
But the thing that gets me is. Yeah,
go for it. Yeah, no, go for it.
I was only going to say, the thing that gets me is, over the years, because they have been ridiculed, and I mean ridiculed, and some of them have been shunned by a lot of people, they had the chance to make loads of money. They could have done if they wanted. They only made a little bit for that National Enquirer. And they've made themselves look like right plums to a lot of people, been shunned, this, that, and the other, but their stories have stayed exactly the same all the way through it. Surely... Do you see where I'm going with this? If it was fake, then A, why carry on? B, why put yourself up for ridicule? C, why have people shun you? And D, why not make any money at it? And E,
I do have to say, I think Travis has made quite a lot of money. He's made a career out of it.
But he didn't initially, did he?
No, not initially, but he has since. I mean, he's been on things like... the Larry King. He was on Larry King. I mean, that's a major network. You get paid for things like that.
You get paid for things, but he did after a few years. He did all the circuit. He did like Larry King. He's done loads of interviews. The Tonight Show. He's done all of interviews, and obviously in recent years he does make a living out of touring UFO conventions, paranormal conventions, etc., etc. And he's been over in the UK, etc. I think he was over in the UK recently. But he hasn't made... I wouldn't say he's made an absolute killing out of this. And I don't think any of them made an absolute killing out of it.
No, they haven't.
So, in my eyes, as a complete and utter sceptic of the whole situation with UFOs, if it was basically... They thought they'd throw a yarn in there and then it blew out of proportion, and then obviously they realised they'd got away with it for a little while and then still kept on getting away with it. I would have thought human nature would then say, hang on, if I can keep getting away with it, I can earn some cash out of this. That's human nature.
Yeah.
But there's also some of the stuff that he described afterwards, like what he saw inside one of the rooms, and the fact that there wasn't just grey, there was other aliens there as well who looked like us. And when he talks about that chair in another room with the lever on it, and when he pulled the lever, there was a load of stars on the sky. And when he moved the lever, the stars changed. So that sounds like a load of star charts being like a navigation room or something, you know. And then he talks about being in another ship. He went from one bit, tried to get away, and went into another ship, found some more of these people, and then that's when they knocked him out. And then he came to outside that telephone booth.
Again, you can imagine the aliens on the ship going, he's running around causing havoc. We've got to do something.
Like, oh my God, get rid of him, Marjorie.
Oh my God, we can't mind control him. We're going to have to knock him out because he's just causing havoc with the star charts. He's putting levers and everything.
He's trying to take us to the star system of transsexual, you know.
But then again, you flip it on the other side of it, where potentially what he saw was human, was a hospital, was a particular type of environment where he was. Then you're going down the conspiracy theory of the government, the military, and then you open up a different angle for the other people to come on board, thinking this is a whole conspiracy, aliens don't exist, and it's all the government, the men in black, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Could have been soldiers in NBC suits.
Yeah, exactly.
It could have been.
It could be. I've
Small ones, but you know.
I've gone through decontamination a few years ago when there was some powder that was sent through to where we worked, and we had to basically go through a decontamination chamber, and it was something like you see in E.T. when you come out of the tent, and these guys are in the big suits with the big weird things, and if you're groggy and you don't know where you are, your mind's going to play tricks on you. They could have been grey suits. And he was just thinking his mind, as pareidolia does, or whatever, visual pareidolia, audio pareidolia, you're going to basically put two and two together because you're not with it, and all of a sudden you're seeing little green men or little grey men with big eyes, when in fact it was people in decontamination suits, etc. But if it was, why were they in decontamination suits? What were they doing? And are they trying to hide what they were doing and made out that it was basically an alien, and that's why they've never proved not, or yes.
Or they all went out into the woods and they smoked some amazing herb, and that was it. That was a good time.
Wow.
You have that, but would going out and smoking an amazing herb, as you put it, would that be able to give you the ability as normal human beings, as in loggers that are just roughnecks, rednecks, whatever you want to call them, to be able to pass umpteen lie detectors?
Well, there was all the experiments that were done on LSD, wasn't there? And some of the people that were experimented by the military, they genuinely believed the situations that they thought they were in. When it wasn't, it was all hallucinations. And when they were given the polygraph test, they passed them because they thoroughly believed everything they saw.
So you just in that description, you just left the little thing where you just mentioned it. The military did this.
Yeah. I mean, there was one guy called Philip J. Klaus. Now, he was an investigative journalist and a UFO researcher, but he's like one of the most sceptical people you could meet, right? Did not believe Walton's story at all in any way, shape or form. Pointed out some really questionable aspects of his narrative, as we have done tonight. We've sort of gone, glass jar, lever, star charts. You know what I mean? We're sitting here being a bit, it's stretching your belief systems, isn't it? And
somebody been watching Stargate again.
Yeah, Klaus says that Walton did not pass his initial polygraph test, nor did the men who allegedly witnessed the event. It was only the second one that they passed. I still think, they passed. On one hand they passed, on one hand they didn't. But they've done so many that it's ridiculous since then.
Would you think that because they've done so many, that the story that they're telling has now become, in their heads, the truth?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? If you tell a lie enough times, you start believing it.
Yeah, because initially, if you go down the route that they failed the first one, maybe they failed the first one, but they kept on saying the same thing, and then psychosomatic memory or whatever, they start then believing what they're saying and believing that what they saw, believing in this, that, and the other. And does that, I don't know this, I'm just putting it out there, do they then start believing that what they told is the truth, and that's the reason down the line, many years after, they're still passing it, because they're now thinking, it's
been proved to happen.
Yeah. I mean, Klaus was that strong against this case that this actually happened on the Larry King Live. On the Larry King Live, there was Walton, Mike Rogers, who we've spoken about, and Klaus. And basically, Klaus lost his temper and started swearing and carrying on and saying, I've caught you up in numerous lies and you know it. And what the trouble is with that is because he lost control of his emotional state, he lost his argument.
Yeah. As soon as you're going down that front, you lose all your not credibility, but you lose all your weight behind your argument.
Yeah, and so everybody sort of then swayed back to the Walton and Rogers story because the skeptic, the one that was supposed to pick this story apart and show it for the fake story that it was, lost control and basically started just having a go, quite frankly. He got very emotive about it.
I'm just reading about that now, actually. Do you know what Klaus's actual job is?
Go on, tell me.
He's an aviation journalist. But I would have thought, being an aviation journalist, why would you be a well-known UFO debunker? Because there's lots of aircraft out there that are black projects and this, that, and the other. You'd have to remain skeptical about them if you got the job as an aviation journalist.
Well, that's been proven because of sightings around certain areas, around test sites, Area 51.
I thought you were going to say around Tesco's.
Yeah. There's a lot of UFOs that we
That's
fire
just
up.
on a Saturday night.
But exactly. But you've got to remember that when I think was it the blackbird or the bluebird when that first was flying, people missighted it because it was secret and that, and obviously the stealth bomber now and all these
Aurora.
Sort of other aircraft.
The Aurora when the Aurora was first being tested. There was loads of sightings about that.
These things have to be tested, so they're going to be flying around. Yeah. Yes, they try and test them in areas that there's not densely populated, but because of the whole conspiracy theory, because of the whole alien theory, there's going to be random people that are close enough to these things that are going to see these things, that are going to go, well, I've never seen an aircraft like that. It must be a UFO. So it's missightings of these vehicles, and it's been proven that, particularly on one of them, that people saw this flying thing, but then the military then said, well, actually, it's this it's actually one of our aircraft.
Yeah, once they release the aircraft for use.
Yeah, exactly.
See, the more I look into this, the more I think, well, I can see two sides. It either actually happened, you take it as face value, it actually happened as they say, and it was a flying saucer, he got hit by a proton beam or whatever they want to call it, took aboard the ship, abducted, and then got released 5 days later. Or you can look at it from a conspiracy perspective of a government was testing some form of craft. Sorry, it's next door's dog giving it some form of some form of new craft. Realised they'd messed up because they'd injured somebody, sorted him out,
and then
released him. His story is going to be that ridiculous, nobody's really going to believe him, which had been proved before in regards to how people have reacted and taken, even down to the Roswell incident. They'd covered that up quite nicely, got away with it, if you want to believe that. Mm-hmm. And then the Betty and Barney, and how ridiculous they had been at the time. So there's a proven track record of the government going, let them say they got abducted by aliens, because no one's going to believe them. And if they do,
that's the thing, because there's the other side of it. You've given two scenarios. There's also a third scenario, is that it was all made up and it was a complete load of lies, but these guys believed it.
Well, this is the other one, because going back to being a little bit of a problem with the story, the supposed abduction actually provided quite a nice excuse for Mike Rogers to avoid paying penalty costs, because the crew had actually fallen behind schedule on one of the logging contracts that he had.
Well, that's what Klaus tried to say. He tried to say that was the whole reason for it all. But behind on, and they hadn't been fined or anything. There was no animosity or anything, and they were allowed to do it again. So swings and roundabouts. I will say one thing: a lot of cases I think are complete hokum. Some cases I do think there's a grain of truth in there, and there's a possibility something may have happened. But I will say that I do not think, and I have never thought, that we are the only planet in the whole of the cosmos with intelligent life on. And I think anybody who thinks that, then they're daft.
But I go back to this time and time again with this one. We have so many systems that are monitoring the atmosphere and stuff like that. You're telling me that they haven't picked up these craft? If they come to this planet as much as people reckon they do, the amount of sightings that are supposed to be seen on a worldwide basis, you're telling me that NORAD, just for one, they follow Santa Claus, for God's sakes. Do you know what I mean?
But there's thousands, and thousands and thousands of galaxies. There's stuff we can't look into. That's what I'm on about. It's just things we know nothing about.
you've also got to look down the lines that if this is happening, if there's little craft flying around, if there's things picking people up, dropping them back 5 days later, kidnapping cows, crashing into planets and whatever, would you then look at the scenario that if you don't say that this is happening? Because to be truthfully honest, I think if all the governments came out and said, this is the facts, this is what's actually happening, we got little people flying around, blah, 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 there'd be a pandemonium going on in the world.
Well, you've only got to read. Gary Bradfield wrote a blog for Parasearch Radio this week and stated a case where, oh God, what was his bloody name? They did a radio series of War of the Worlds, didn't they?
Or some worlds.
Thank you. That's the man.
Yeah, that was brilliant, that.
Yeah,
people killed themselves.
People thought it was real. And there are varying reports as to the reaction, but people thought it was real and started packing up to leave because they thought we were being abducted by aliens. Not abducted, being, attacked by aliens. And so when you look at something like that, I know that was back in the day and we're a lot more knowledgeable now, but are we? Because I'm not going to lie, I would be out of here. If I really honestly thought that it was an Independence Day kind of situation, I'd be heading for the hills.
I think that's one of the other scenarios that people often talk about when you talk about UFOs is what sort of impact, if it was true, would have to the world. If every single government came out and said, yes, we know it, they've been coming for years, blah, 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 we're not alone.
Well, they're more it'll break religion, don't they?
Sorry, I just swore. Sorry, I do apologise.
No, you said shipper. You said ship, as in ship of the desert. Ship of the desert.
The ship of the desert would hit the fan.
It really would. I think it would. I think a lot of people would be very scared and would get out of the cities because of the propaganda of films like War of the Worlds, like films like Independence Day, like, oh my God, there's so many alien type films where the aliens are the bad guys and, they're going to come and wipe out humanity and, there's so many of them. It's kind of...
It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the
unknown, isn't it? Now, I just want to go back because James has actually put, who on earth is going to use the abducted by aliens as a viable lack of work excuse? I might try that at work tomorrow and see how it goes down with my boss.
It all depends.
I'm so sorry I got abducted by aliens.
How much they were going to be fined. How much they're going to be fined and what sort of impact on future contracts would that have?
But that still doesn't account for the physical and emotional responses they had when this happened on the night and they turned up at the sheriff's office. I mean, if you've sat there can you imagine? Right, okay. You're in the woods.
Okay.
Mike Rogers is sitting there going, mate, we're so behind. This is going to cost me millions or thousands and thousands of dollars and I haven't got it. So we've got to come up with a really good excuse as to why we haven't fulfilled our contract, right? So they all sit there and they're all going, right, okay, so... They go through various scenarios and, we've got to break someone's legs or, big bad accident. We don't really want to do that. Oh, I know. We could say that one of us has been abducted by aliens and they'll just go off and live in the forest for a few days. We'll go back to the town and say to the sheriff, he's right. Who on earth would actually make that up as an excuse? It's rather an elaborate excuse. Normal people wouldn't come up with that, would they?
I'm sorry I can't come into work today. I've been abducted by aliens and I am being probed right as we speak.
Exactly. But this is the thing with this whole subject of UFOs and kind of goes into the paranormal, ghost-wise and stuff like that, spirits and hauntings, exactly. It's personal belief. Some people will believe that little green men run around the country. Some people will think it's the blokes, it's the government in their black SUVs with the black helicopters in their black suits. I have no idea why it's all black, but that's
because it's such a cool colour in the same way paranormal teams love a black hoodie.
Exactly. I don't understand it. Why
cool
can't I have a bit of colour? Why can't I have a bit of colour? Bit of a flowery shirt or something. But yeah.
Because I prefer my mum's curtains to be left at my mum's house.
Well, I would say something, but I'm not going to because we're not.
Now, let's keep it on non-personal,
But
guys.
you've got so many different belief systems of different people that every time something like this comes up, every time you discuss it, people will say, well, this is what happened, or this is what happened. No, this is... It's the same thing about any other subject we discuss over the years on the paranormal side of it. Whether it's like the show you did with Jay recently about Mothman, incredible, and all things. It's personal belief. You saw something, you potentially misrepresented it. You thought it was something, you believe it is. You've then described it, and then all of a sudden down the line, it's this or it's that. Same thing about aliens. Same thing about UFOs. You miss something. You can't give an explanation of what it is. I think
it's spot on.
Same with ghosts. Same with spirits.
Yeah. Most paranormal stuff, any part of the paranormal, I think, is 99.9% explained. There's only that 0.01% that none of us can explain. But most of it you can just say,
And that's why we're all sitting around talking to Skype, talking to everybody that's listening to the show. And that's
exactly,
why we do it. Because there is that percentage.
Because that's our job.
Yeah, what is that? What is the unknown? What is that physical... I need to know that. I need to know why, what is happening, because I need to understand it in my head. And that's with the subject of...
there's loads of things we don't know anything about yet. I still say that somewhere in the cosmos there are aliens, and nothing will persuade me that there aren't anything out there. I don't think every single thing that happens is an alien. I don't think all these stories are real, and I think a lot of it is made up just for the sensationalism or money and this and the other. But I think there's the odd bit that could be real.
But I think I completely agree with you, Mark, on the subject of aliens, because I think it's quite narrow-minded of a species to think we are the only intelligent thing in a universe that is vast, that we've never even explored a tiny little bit of it. We've only gone as far as some of the planets. We've not gone out of our universe. We've not gone out of this. At the end of the day, it could be like Men in Black, and we're all living in a bus shelter in whatever, you open the door and there's our planet. We could be, or people are playing rocks with our planets. You don't know this because but it is very narrow-minded of anybody out there to think aliens can't exist because we are the only intelligent life in the universe.
Yeah.
Really? If we're the only intelligent life in the universe, we've got some serious issues.
Yes, we have.
Unless we are the anomaly in the universe.
Then we go back to the same thing, that are we the ghosts, and what we see in ghosts are actually living.
Okay, so in the chat room, Richard says, why is it every events company, a paranormal group out there, always encounter the paranormal every weekend on their events and investigations? I would argue they don't.
TV!
No, they don't.
Certain TV channels will have you think it does.
But then
they're TV.
You've also Kerry, I'll just answer that quick question with another question: is why can't, if the paranormal does not just happen like split second or whatever, why is it not happening every single moment of the day? Because we're not seeing it, because we're not investigating it. Why can't it be happening every single moment? Why is it just when we go out in our black shirts with our silver cases and do it?
99% of encounters with a spirit or a ghost, if you want to class it as that, happens when you're not actually out there looking for it.
Correct.
Right? Now, in 1966, Klaus made an offer of $10,000 for proof of alien life, nor did he discredit Travis because he didn't want to pay up.
Mm-hmm. Or
he did discredit Travis because he didn't want to pay up. I think they should read.
It's the same scenario. If ghosts are real and you captured one in a nice little jar, little Casper waving around in the jar, la 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 la, and you've got it, and you go to somebody, that's a ghost. A believer will go, yeah, that's a ghost.
Yeah.
A skeptic will go, A non-believer.
Let's have a look at it closer. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing about aliens. Same thing about anything. If your thought pattern and your belief system is this, that, and the other, you are going to believe what you believe in. The only way you'd get most of the population to believe it is if dirty great big ships. I'm not saying Independence Day taking over alien invasion, but I'm saying if dirty great big ships appeared and said, right, we'd like to make friends with you guys, and if everybody saw it, maybe, but you're still going to get the odd 25% of the population who are going to go, oh, no, it's the government. Oh, they're just doing this, they're just doing that. So it doesn't matter what you do in which aspect of the paranormal you are in.
Packing my stuff and heading for the hills in Scotland.
She'd ring me up and go, Mark, say aliens, it's all rubbish. See ya, I'm going to the caves.
I'll be up in Inverness.
But at the end of the day, if the aliens are intelligent, they're going to know you're going to head for the hills, so they're going to be waiting for you in Inverness or in the island.
Don't scare the life out of me. They won't follow me. They're not interested in it, love me. I've got nothing to offer probing.
Well, that's another show entirely.
That's a completely different game.
Goodness me. Wow. This has turned into a thing. Anyway, regardless of whatever way you want to believe it, it's one of those cases that is fascinating even to this day, bearing in mind this happened in 1975. It still keeps people talking and, enthralled in the topic. It's one, as I said, we started the show with argumentatively, I can't speak tonight, one of the best known cases in the ufology world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is.
It still like I said, holds water, really, doesn't it? When you listen to him talk, I watched some interviews earlier on YouTube. He comes across incredibly credible. He doesn't sound like a wacko.
He's not wearing a tinfoil hat either, which is good.
No.
Did you know there's a date on a totally different thing? There's actually a dating site for people that wear tinfoil hats and think the aliens are trying to control them if they don't wear the tinfoil hats. I kid you not. Anyway, yes, he is very credible.
I think the dating website, there's something for everybody out there. If you look hard enough.
Just saying.
Hashtag just saying. I'm going to share the blog into the chat room. If you've not caught up with Gary's blog, then please do. It's a really interesting read. Really well written, I have to say. So please carry on, Gary. We like your blogs. And Mark, you need to do a new blog too. Just saying.
I know. I'm going to get a funeral out of the way first, and then I sort it.
I know. I'm a horrible, horrible boss. Evil queen is all I'm saying.
I could think of a few more words, but I'm not going to put them out on air now.
So, what is your personal opinion then, Mark, of the Travis Walton case? Where do you stand? Do you believe it, or what's your opinion?
I think something happened, and I think it was definitely something happened, and it was something that they all saw. Whether it was mass hysteria, which has been proved to happen, I don't know. Whether he was genuinely abducted, I don't know. But something did happen, and whether it was something they were all in on, it could have been. I don't know. I don't think it's a made-up thing, but I do think there was an incident. But they do seem quite credible, and the fact that the stories have never altered one little bit is that kind of sways me towards it did happen. No,
Carl?
I agree with Mark what he just said. I think because the stories haven't changed over the years, because they have kept to those same stories, I believe that something happened in those woods. I'm still sat on the fence getting splinters, whether it's aliens, whether it's a government cover-up, or whether it's mass hysteria or whatever. Something must have happened to trigger what's gone on. What it
Something happened.
I don't know. Like you say, with anything that we do in this field, you end up having more questions than answers.
Very true.
Exactly.
Very, very true. Anyway, on that note, my lovely gentlemen, we have actually come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining me and filling in for Paul on tonight's show. That's been absolutely awesome of you. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Don't forget, guys, we've got more shows coming up, hopefully kicking off at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening with a Supernatural Chat Show, followed by Haunted Histories. Check out our YouTube channel for all the shows. If you've missed any, they're all up on our YouTube YouTube channel, Parasearch Radio. I know. Honestly, I need to put my teeth back in. Well, God, I can't even remember what I say. Share, like, subscribe, tell your friends, comment, share, like, subscribe. See, I can't even remember to do that tonight. Oh, it's been one of those days. Anyway, on that note, we bid you all a very farewell. I think I'm going to leave it there.
I will see you guys on Friday when we do the Dark Mirror show, all about ESP.
Yes.
And thanks for asking me on, and I'll probably see you on some show in the future.
Oh, you most definitely
And I'd quite
will.
like to do it. I'd like to do another show on with Carl and perhaps get Gary involved as well.
I'd like to talk about the whole Area 51 because I think that's a case, that's an environment that has so many different sides to it.
There you go. There's a new radio show. Carl, myself, and whoever else wants to be involved. The Area 55 Funhouse.
And on that note, we bid you all a very farewell. I shall sort that out. Good night, everybody.
Thank you
Remember
for
to
listening.
click like,
Don't
share,
forget
and
to join us
subscribe.
for more shows
Bye-bye.
throughout
Thank
the
you, Gary.
week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.